I'm Monica Bradford with scrapinspired.com, and this is Inspiration to Creation. I'm inspired by so many things in my life, and I love finding ways to use that inspiration in my scrapbooking and other crafting projects. Today, I want to share with you how I was inspired by 6x6 paper pads. I love these things. You might even say that I have a bit of an addiction. I like to buy them a lot. And so I wanted to find a way to use these more often in my scrapbooking. Now, one of the reasons I love a 6x6 paper pad, first of all, is that I can buy an entire collection for about $5. And I love that I can get so many beautiful papers at such a discounted rate. Another thing I love about 6x6 paper pads is they're really easy to use with mini albums, especially when you're creating 2-up mini album scrapbooks, which I do a lot. So the 4x6 2-up photo albums that you can buy pretty much at any store, Target, Walmart, Walgreens, wherever. I love to turn those into scrapbooks. And I create scrapbook pages by using paper in the 2 4x6 pockets. Well, a 6x6 paper pad is perfect for that because the paper is already trimmed to a size that works very easily in those type of albums. But the thing I love best about 6x6 paper pads is the type of paper that they have. Now, on a 12x12 sheet, the patterns can be rather large and sometimes busy, and for me that's difficult to work with. I'm typically a side B scrapper, which is the tone-on-tone small pattern, but 6x6 paper pads are a little bit different. It's not that they just take that 12x12 sheet of paper and trim it into a 6-inch square and that's what they put in the paper pads. They actually shrink the pattern down so that it's a smaller version of that bold print. With a 6x6 paper pad, I'm more able to use some of those fun, bold patterns that would be difficult for me to use on a 12x12 sheet of paper. So today I'm going to show you how you can use some of these 6x6 papers on a 12x12 scrapbook page. So let's get started. Before I get started on today's page, I want to show you a couple of different options that different looks that you could get with the 6x6 paper pad. The design is going to be the same for each of them, but the 6x6 papers are going to be different, and I'm going to show you how drastically different your layouts could look. First, I'm going to start with my other addiction, Amy Tangerine, and this is her Ready, Set, Go paper pad. And I've pulled just a few papers from that, and I'm going to use, for this example, I'm going to use a gray cardstock base. And what I would do if I was using these papers is I would trim them down about a 1/4 inch off of each side so that they would lay just inside and let the gray cardstock frame them nicely. But for this example, I'm just going to kind of lay them on top of each other a little bit so you can see what it would look like. And I realize that this is not going to be a perfect match in the middle. But it would have a look something like that. And then you could put your photos on there. Another idea is to take some washi tape or ribbon and kind of do a line across the middle all the way across. So you have this nice border. And then you would use your photos and journaling and embellishments the same way you would with any layout. My next example uses some papers from the My Mind's Eye Indie Chic. Now, this is a very different look than the Amy Tangerine. It's yellows and blues and just not quite as bright as some of the Amy Tangerine papers, and it gets a very different look. I wouldn't say distressed, but a little bit more similar in the distressed style. And so these papers that I've chosen, this is one of the ones I was talking about. This in a 12x12 would be a pattern that would be difficult for me to use. But when it's shrunk down to this 6x6 size, it's much easier to find a place to use it on the layout. So in this case, I would use a cardstock that is Craft is the background, and just do a mix of the blues and yellow. Again, I realize it's not completely centered, but then you could do perhaps a yellow washi tape or ribbon across the center to give it some nice definition. You could go back to the dark blue even. And then this line comes with its own washi tape. I do have some of it. So I've got this floral that's got that same pattern in it. I've even got the exact same chevron. I wouldn't probably use the chevron tape with this chevron paper, but if I got a different color paper to put here, then I could use the chevron. So for example, if I used, let's see, say, this yellow floral up in the top corner instead of that chevron, then I could definitely use the chevron washi across the middle. So that's just a couple of examples to give you some ideas of what it could look like. Today I'm going to do a layout about my son. So I'm going to go for a very bright and bold pattern. This is a 6x6 paper pad that I found at Michael's a while back. It's just Studio G, and it's got lots of bright, fun colors, but in simple geometric patterns, which I love. So this is what we're going to work with for today. I've got my 4 colors. Bright and bold is what I'm going for here. And then I've got a white background, and I'm going to use a gray washi tape to do my center line. I have these 2 photos of my son. He has taken to digging through our recycling bin and using duct tape to turn things into creations. He made a guitar, he made a drum and cymbal, he has made a fishing pole complete with line and fish hanging from it. He has made a diorama just one morning before school for fun. He's gotten very creative with recyclables. So I thought it would be fun to document this story, and it's a bright and cheerful kind of story, so that's why I wanted to use bright and cheerful papers. In addition, I know I will probably use some of these My Mind's Eye enamel dots. Totally addicted to these things, so I'm sure I'll find a place for them on my page. And then I will probably use a journaling card from this from the Snap collection. I'm looking at this Today journaling card because it's got a lot of the same colors in it that I'm using, but yet it's got room to write. So I'm thinking of using that. So let's get started pulling this layout together. Before I begin sticking it down, I have trimmed off a 1/4 inch off of 2 sides of each of the papers, and now I'm just going to use my ruler to make sure that I'm a 1/4 inch in and a 1/4 inch down from the top and the bottom. That just helps me keep things more centered. With 4 pieces like this, it can be easy for things to move around. So I'm going to use my ruler and just attach my 4 pieces of paper. Y'all know I can't make a layout without washi tape, right? I love this gray washi tape because it's a neutral, and with so many bold colors, it really helps kind of ground the layout and not compete with all those colors. And the stripe is also a simple pattern, so it goes really well. And I just kind of stick my washi tape on, let it go over the edge, wrap it around the back, and that's all I do to attach it to my page. I want the photos just down a little bit so that there's room for a title and embellishments up above, as well as journaling to the side. This little journaling card is just perfect color-wise and size-wise because I want to be sure that there's still a bit of pattern paper that shows on either side of the photos as well as the journaling card. So even though it's just kind of peeking out, I don't want to lose the orange and the green. So that size card, the 3x4 card, is really a good fit for this layout. Now that I have the basic layout decided, I am ready to start playing with embellishments. Sometimes I save those to the end. Sometimes I decide I'm ready to start figuring out where things go kind of here in the middle. I have some stickers and arrows and just a bunch of things that I'm going to start pulling out and arranging around on my page and just trying to figure out what fits with the theme and what I can use to just give the page a little bit more personality. I really love this orange arrow, so I know I'm going to use that, and I want to do a little framing of the arrow, give it a little bit more bulk up at the top, and find some other places that I can include arrows on the page. I have this cut apart page from Snap, and it had this little word bubble that said awesome, and it used some of the colors from my layout, had that gray in there. It even had the word bubble point of the word bubble pointing in the right direction, so I figured it was a perfect fit for this layout to go as kind of a embellishment triangle, give a spot near the bottom to add a little embellishment cluster. I didn't have any pre-made arrows that worked with my layout, so I decided it was time to grab some stamps and some inks and create my own. And I just found some fun arrow stamps that I had in my stamp collection and some of my favorite inks that match my layout. I'm a huge fan of the Hero Art mid-tone shadow inks. I love the color. I love the way they stamp. They're just totally my favorite. And I just stamped a variety of arrows, just
a collection of them. I wasn't exactly sure where they would go. I wasn't exactly sure how I would use them all or if I would use them all. I just thought I'd take a piece of scrap paper, stamp out a bunch, and see if I could find places to use them. And then the ones I didn't use here, I can always use on another project at another time. Before I start adding in all my stamped arrows, I wanted to go ahead and work on that embellishment cluster up at the top. And I want that orange arrow to stick down lower than the green box. So that means I gotta have the green box kind of hanging off the page a little bit and trim it off because it was just a bit too big. I love using my Tim Holtz scissors for trimming things like stickers, adhesive, anything with adhesive or in washi tape, things like that, because they're non-stick and that stuff just does not stick to the scissors. They're awesome. And that gives me, now my arrow is longer than the box, which is exactly what I wanted. And I can work on figuring out what else to do in that embellishment cluster to just give it a little bit more interest. Completely decided about the top yet, but I did decide I wanted to add a line to go underneath that awesome speech bubble. And to keep with the arrow theme, I got this arrow, another version of an arrow stamp, and I'm just going to stamp it straight on the paper with orange ink so you can see it, but it's a bit more subtle. And that will give a nice line of interest right underneath those photos and something to kind of hold and frame that awesome speech bubble. And then I'm going to pop up the speech bubble on pop dots so that it just has a little bit more dimension down in that bottom corner. I want my journaling block to touch the photos, touch the washi tape, but I don't want it to line up exactly with the bottom of those photos. I know it looks a little bit like it does, but it is just a smidgen up. I just seemed too boxy when it was totally lined up, so I made it just be a little bit off from that. And now I'm going to attach the arrow to the top and start finishing up the rest of the embellishments. Alright, I decided that I needed to do the title first before I could finish the embellishment cluster because I needed to make sure I had room for the title that I wanted to spell. Now I'm spelling the title is going to say creative every day, and the creative is going to be out of these bigger letters, but I didn't want it to take up a whole bunch of room. So I wanted the letters to touch each other, and I kind of made them go up and down a little bit and twisted so that they could be as close together as possible. And right now I'm just laying them on the page really gently so that I can still move them around later. So I'm not pushing them down at all because I want to make sure that I have space to add in the whole title. And once I have kind of a general idea of where the bigger word is going to go, I can start adding in the smaller letters first, get those lined up, and then add the bigger title back up on top. You'll notice there's a bit of a gap underneath the front end of the title and where the everyday happens. And so I'm going to add in some more arrows. And again, I'm just going to stamp straight onto the paper with a blue color, so it's kind of a tone on tone. And then I'm going to add a little cutout arrow from earlier onto that as well, just to give it a little bit of extra oomph and dimension there. And that fills in that spot that was sort of empty and needing just a little bit something else. I have this little yellow camera from a piece of Amy Tangerine paper that I've trimmed out, and I'm going to use that up near the top. Again, I'm going to pop it on pop dots, sort of like I did at the bottom, just for a little bit of added dimension. And now I'm going to add in some of my favorite enamel dots. I'm going to use colors that coordinate with the layout, and I'm going to put just a few in each of the 3 embellishment areas just to add some additional dimension, color, and interest. Now all I need to do is add in my journaling and the date, and my layout will be complete. And now it's your turn. Create a layout inspired by my layout or using 6x6 paper pads. And then link your creation in the blog post below so that we can all share the inspiration.
Thank you for joining me for Inspiration to Creation. I'm Monica Bradford, and until we meet again, I hope you find time to scrap inspired.